Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being produced here at Think Twice Radio, the home of the future. Here, thanks to Richard Wicca, our producer. Thank you, Richard. So I am Vicki Ross. I'm the co-director at the Western New York Peace Center, co-hosting the show with our very own Deidre Email, who is taking over as executive director at the Western New York Peace Center and co-hosting the show. And I will let her introduce our two candidates at this very special mayoral forum. Deidre?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Peace. Thank you, Vicki. I would just love to, introduce our two candidates here. We have Miss LeCandice Durham. Am I saying your last name right? Durham?
Yes, you are.
And Mrs. LeCandice Durham and Ms. Indy Walton with us today. And we're so happy to have you and honored to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good.
Oh,
go ahead, Vicki.
I just want to add that Byron Brown has also been invited. He did have another engagement. So this is for ballot-qualified candidates, and we're very excited to have these two candidates here with us to answer your questions and our questions. We have quite a few. And meanwhile, if you do want to share questions on the Facebook live stream, we can convey them as time permits. So thank you all for that. And now I'm going to hand it back over to you, Deidre.
So, yeah, and just let me know, Vicki, when, of
Sure.
course, when you have a question after after I go between the two and say, hey, I got a question, and, mine comes second to everybody else. So I'm going to try to keep our time a little bit here again and just start it over, if y'all don't mind. So our first question is really, and we'll basically go from Mrs. Durham to, Ms. Walton, alphabetical order, in answering the questions is, tell us more about yourself. Let us know, who are you? Where'd you come from?
All right. Yes. My name is LeCandice Durham, born and raised in the city of Buffalo. I'm a mom. I'm a wife to 6 children. I'm a small business owner to Candy Eyes, fashion, glasses, and accessories. I'm also a block club leader of my neighborhood, Gallatin Avenue. I'm the not-for-profit president of my organization called the Poppy Kids Club, an organization that started after my young niece was tragically killed by a motor vehicle. This organization help young children get through trauma. It doesn't matter what type of trauma it is, we're there to assist. Also, I'm a complaint clerk for the city of Buffalo, better known as 311. I also was employed with the Buffalo Police Department as a cell block attendant. And I also worked in the city of Buffalo Permit and Inspections Department as a clerk.
All right. Thank you so much. Ms. Walton?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. My name is Indy Walton. I am a Buffalo native, born, raised, educated in Buffalo public schools. By profession, I am a registered nurse where I worked more than a decade at Kaleida and at Women and Children's Hospital before moving on to become an organizer where I worked on issues of police transparency, criminal legal reform, and the statewide campaign to legalize adult use cannabis. Most recently, I was executive director of a nonprofit that I co-founded called the Fruitvale Community Land Trust, where in the first year, I took that organization from just an idea to over $1 million operating and project budget, where we built 2 permanently affordable houses in the Fruitvale as a solution to curbing the negative impacts of neighborhood change. I have 4 wonderful sons. And I love Buffalo so much. I'm running as an act of courage and care. And I can't wait to do more work with all the folks that I've worked for such a long time to really advance justice and equity in the city of Buffalo.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mrs. Durham, what made you want to run for mayor?
Yes, so to throw this out there, I never had plans on running for mayor. I always had plans on helping my community, yes, but never had plans on running for mayor until the pandemic, the civil unrest. It was just so much going on. I currently work at 311, but working at 311, it gives me opportunity to hear what's going on in the city every single day. It gives me an opportunity to, the wants and needs of the residents in the city of Buffalo. And the wants and the needs during that time was just blowing my mind, driving me crazy, listening to complaints all day long without any solutions. So to be honest, God put it on my heart, and I had to answer that calling and enter this race to take care of the residents here in the city of Buffalo.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Our next question is, what are the 3 most important points of your platforms? Ms. Durham. No. Yes, Ms. Durham. Try to remember where did I start with first? Yes. Continue.
And to be honest, it's so hard to narrow it down to 3 because there's so much going on in the city of Buffalo. And trust me, I have my 3. But when you go around and speak with the residents, the first thing they say to you is the roads. Are you going to fix the roads? And to be honest, you can't do anything without our roads being fixed. So infrastructure is most definitely on the top of my list. Education, I would love to see trades back into the schools. And also crime and police reform. It's a big need right now in the city of Buffalo.
Thank you. Great. Ms. Walton?
Yeah, my platform priorities are centered on people and rooted in love. I think the most important thing that we can be thinking about right now is a just pandemic recovery and how we take federal aid that's coming and prioritize people who have suffered for a long time, because the city of Buffalo has problems that existed before the pandemic. So my priorities are a just pandemic recovery, relief for tenants and small time landlords. We have a huge eviction crisis and foreclosure crisis that is looming. And unless we act proactively, we're going to see a lot of people that are facing homelessness, and we want to avoid that. And I think last but definitely not least is healing our community, rebuilding our relationships between one another and also with our police department. And doing it in a way where we are prioritizing people, we're reallocating budgets to things that really increase community safety, like year-round youth employment, fully staffed and funded community centers, and reestablishing our social safety net programs, increasing access to mental health, and really reimagining what public safety looks like.
All right. Thank you so much. What personal qualities, Mrs. Durham, what personal qualities do you have that is important that you think that you can bring to the mayor's seat?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm authentic. I'm very honest. I'm a great multitasker. I'm a great listener. I'm just, I'm loyal. I'm fearless. I'm passionate, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Ms. Walton, what do you bring to the table? What personal qualities do you have?
I have a deep love for my community and a strong ability to build coalition and work in cross-sector partnerships to get things done. I am a strategic thinker. My background as a registered nurse allows me to be able to objectively problem solve without getting too emotionally attached to the people involved, but really being focused on the solutions. And I think what our community needs most right now as a solution is to be able to hear the concerns of residents of Buffalo and act on them in a way that, again, prioritizes people who have existed on the fringes and on the margins. I'm a lifelong problem solver. I became a registered nurse because I had twins in the NICU who spent six months there, and I was not satisfied with the way we were treated. So I went and became a registered nurse, went back and worked in that same NICU to be able to provide the solutions that I thought were needed. Same thing with being an organizer. When I realized that my one-on-one interactions with my patients was not having the broad impact that I wanted, I began to learn how to do policy and legislation and become an advocate for my people. The same thing with my work in the Fruit Belt. I'm not an affordable housing developer, but I know how to find the answers to the solution, and that usually lies in deep relationship building and community building with people. And I think that the number one thing I can say about my personal traits that makes me equipped to be a leader is that I can work with anyone. We don't have to be the best of friends. We don't have to agree on everything. But one thing that I will agree on is that our community is ready for change. It needs change. There's lots of improvements to be made. We are rich in resources, but our priorities have been out of whack. And I'm going to come to make sure that our priorities are in line with how we really value our people who are in our community.
Great. Thank you. Thank you both. What do you consider your greatest achievement so far, Ms. Durham?
Yes, one of my greatest achievements, I do believe, is buying a house. You know, it's challenging. It's a lot of obstacles. You can become very discouraged, but I do believe that's one of my greatest achievements is buying a house. Also, being a civil service employee, civil service exams can be difficult and challenging as well. But knowing where I came from, working my way up from McDonald's, making minimum wage, I came a long way. So to be where I'm at today is a big achievement, most definitely.
Thank you. And Ms. Walton?
Thank you.
I believe my biggest achievement is exactly what I'm doing right now. I think that this primary race, has been an unprecedented time for the city of Buffalo. There is more national and statewide attention being paid to a mayoral primary than at any time that I can remember as a voter. So I'm extremely proud of the work that I have done along with my team, recruiting more than, 300 volunteers, and really proving that we can have a system that is successful, that we can run progressive candidates outside of the dominant party. When I think that traditionally folks in our city have been told, you have to wait your turn, you need the blessing of certain people. We've proven that we can run on the issues. That the left is not self-destructive, that we can build infrastructure of our own, and that we can fundraise and be competitive in this environment where we're seeing a progressive wave all over the country, especially those that are led by women like me.
Wow, thank you. And I can honestly say that I'm just, very proud to be talking to two women of color as mayoral candidates. And, I'm just forever thankful just for all of your hard work and as you two push forward. So I'm very proud of you. How would you handle policing in Buffalo right now with, everything that's being talked about with police reform and so on? Mrs. Durham, would you?
Yes. So right now, because in the future, I would love to see education brought back in, college education, which was taken away. I do believe our officers need more training and more knowledge. Police officers cannot.
Uh-oh, can't hear you. I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Check your mic.
Great. And those classes, they teach you about ethics and things in that sort. The police academy it moves so fast. So so you could be on the force. So you're not learning as much as you should. Also, I would love to see more community policing. Right now, the residents in our city is scared. I hear it every single day. So I do know our residents want to see more community involvement. They want to see police officers walking the streets. They want to see the police officers being visible. Also, another thing I would like to do is district rotation. I don't want to segregate the police force. I want to be able to have it diverse and have the officers rotate from A district, B district, C district, D district, E district. Every district has something different to bring culture-wise. So I would love to, that is one of my plans, is to rotate the police department, get them more involved in the community, more active community policing.
Thank you so much. And I don't know, Vicki, did you hear, you cut off of one part, and maybe, I don't know if it was just me or Vicki, did you get the full answer? Okay. But it was right before, it was right after you wanted more visibility in the community of police officers. It was right after that.
Yes, district rotation, regular district rotation with the police officers. Yes, I want the police officers to be able to know each district. I want police officers I want them to live in a city, as they should. They should know the community that they're policing. And if they're in regular district rotation, they'll be able to, learn the people that's in the community.
Okay, thank you so much. And Ms. Walton, how would you address the policing issue in our city?
Yeah, you'll notice that the answer to many of my questions is reducing poverty. When we make investments in the right places, when we improve our social safety net services and mental health services, we need far less police. So the answer is to stop expecting police to come cure all of our societal woes that we've done by slashing healthcare and mental health services, that we've done by not allowing our children year-round youth employment or a way to blow off steam afterward, that we've allowed by allowing unemployment rates to skyrocket in communities of color and not well equipping our children and young people to be college or career ready. So, this is really a conversation about how we stop trying to throw more money at police to solve the problem, because what the problem is far more systemic and intersectional than that. You can't train away racism, right? And we know that this system was designed to be oppressive to certain groups of people, and we can't just sweep that under the rug. At the same time, as a Black mother, I'm getting it from all angles. I'm afraid for my boys to go out and have interactions with the police, and I'm also afraid for my boys to be out here in the community and some of the violence that we're seeing among our community. And you can't solve any of those issues independently of one another. We have to make investments in our youth. We have to protect our returning citizens and our new neighbors, and we also have to work with patrol officers. It can't just be the brass that's giving the directive. You have to work with the people who actually do the job to find the solutions that are going to get us to where we need to go, and that can't happen in a vacuum. It needs community, it needs lawmakers, and it needs police also. And day one, we're removing police from responding to mental health calls as it is safe. As long as no one is in danger, there's no reason for a uniformed and weaponized officer to respond, because we know that situations like that tend to escalate. We've seen it over and over again, and we don't need any more of that. What we need is a brave and bold leader that's going to say, hey, we can do this different. I know lots of mental health professionals who they're trained at de-escalation, right? Police are not trained in that way. So we just have to be brave about it and have these honest conversations about what safety looks like for our community and who actually serves to keep us safe, and stop expecting for police to be social workers and homeless outreach workers and traffic enforcement and all of those things that we know start interactions that can oftentimes lead down the pathway of trouble, sometimes even death. So, allowing police to do their jobs and making sure that we fund positions for those other folks who are supposed to be doing those jobs.
Thank you. And Ms. Durham, did you raise your hand?
Buzz came back.
Oh,
Yes, because I didn't know if this was like something that I could respond to. I wasn't sure.
Oh, to respond to her.
To Miss India, yeah. Like, is it just us answering the questions, or is I'm able to respond?
I think right now is answering the questions. What Vicky thinks. I don't know if she's near the microphone right now, but really we just want the public to hear, what both divisions are. Equally, and what and where you're coming from equally, and giving you that time to just kind of express yourself at this point. Because if we don't get to all of our questions, we can kind of get stuck on one topic, kind of going back and forth.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, but if we do have time for our last.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
What did you say?
Standing here.
I said thank you.
Okay, yeah. So in our last half hour, we might have time to kind of more into something, to one of the topics. Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
So our next question is, so how would you, as mayor, how would you handle real estate development in Buffalo, Ms. Durham?
Yes, so we have a lot of vacant land in the city of Buffalo, which I would love to see them turn into beautiful homes for the residents in the city of Buffalo. In the city of Buffalo right now, all we see is a bunch of townhouses, row houses, and those type of things that's enabling the residents in the city of Buffalo. Many of the residents want to own their own home, and I would love to give them that opportunity. Also, with the vacant land, I would love to change the auction, not even just the vacant land, abandoned homes, vacant homes in the city. One of my goals is to change the auction to around tax time, when residents have a little bit more money to be able to have a deposit for a new home and things in that sort. So those are my goals.
Thank you. Ms. Walton?
My experience as a new affordable housing developer lately really showed me that there are lots of community-based organizations, CDCs, and community housing development organizations that are not necessarily getting the cooperation required from our municipal government. As an example, when we needed to purchase city-owned vacant land in order to build new housing on, we were charged market rate. So when we're talking about making housing a truly affordable, if the city is trying to squeeze every single dime out of folks who do want to develop affordable housing, then that's a barrier to creating truly affordable housing. So one thing that I'm really interested in doing is being able to expand access to city-owned property for nonprofits and affordable housing developers who are doing the good work and who have not just had the cooperation of the city, folks like the Fruitvale Community Land Trust, who have outside funding, non-government funding to rehab properties and put folks in them, and we've just not had the cooperation. Like the Habitats for Humanities, who have outside funding, again, that's not government funding, that can take some of our blighted properties and put them back to productive use. And what that does is a couple of things. It increases our tax base, so we have revenue. We don't have to rely on fines and fees and tickets, because now we have property owners who are going to pay taxes. When people own where they live, they have a different sense of pride in it. You see crime naturally reduce. That is the way that we close the racial home ownership and wealth gap, because now we're giving people an asset that they're going to be able to build equity in. And, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the neighborhood planning strategy that's a part of my platform, because you cannot determine what needs to be developed in a neighborhood without speaking to the people who live there. I know lots of wonderful urban planners who do a great job, but what we have found working the Fruitvale community is that people know what they need where they live. So while we're talking about plans, we need a comprehensive vacant land use strategy that takes into account the future amenities, the density of neighborhoods, and that honors the Green Code, so that we're building sustainable, affordable, high quality amenity, mixed income neighborhoods where all people thrive.
I want to jump in here for 1 second. I'm going to say we're having all kinds of technical difficulties. I'm very embarrassed and truly apologize. I will also ask LeCandice if you can mute yourself when you are not speaking. That would help. And as far as me, I have thought I'm on. I thought I was not on camera. I certainly had my video off, but I'm sorry if I am on camera or distracting. Because we've just been trying to straighten out some wrinkles. For those of you, I've just posted on Facebook that on the event page, it's not streaming, but it is streaming on your candidate pages, on the Western New York Peace Center page, and on Think Twice Radio page. And, of course, it is going to be on WBNY on Monday. So thank you for that little intermission point of interest.
So, Vicki, I had a question for you, and I don't think we discussed it a little bit.
Okay.
But do you think we'll have maybe some time in our last half hour for them to respond to each other's, like responses to the questions, to respond to each other?
Sure. To me, it's if you both want to do that, I think that would be, certainly something that you could do.
Okay.
So,
we do have a few more. Did you have any, Arthur?
Frankly, I've been very engrossed in the technological difficulties that we've had, so I have not had the privilege and the pleasure of hearing your answers to the question. So I don't know where you're at.
For Facebook, did you see any for Facebook yet?
So far, no. They're just asking if we could get our technological things in order.
Okay.
So
okay.
I hope everyone can hear, and we do apologize. So thank you, but it doesn't take away from the information that's being offered, and it will be available in all those sites as well. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. So we're talking about our neighborhoods and so I wanted to ask this. Recently, our neighborhoods have been, some of them have gotten a boost, right? And while some longtime, residents, such as the Fruitvale residents, have been tried to either priced out, or they're trying to, price them out, like on the kind of like the middle west side, where I am, around the Massachusetts and 5 Points, Grant Street areas, and so on. So priced out through gentrification. So what are your plans? What can you do about that, Mrs. Durham?
Yes. So speaking with some of the residents that have happened to, we have a lot of loyal residents in the city of Buffalo that made it clear they are not going anywhere. And these is the residents that we need to make sure that we protect from these new developers that's taking up all our streets, for residents to park. Even with the fruit built now, with those parking permits and things like that, the residents over there are still hurting. They're still finding themselves having to walk from, they still finding themselves to have to pay in parking realms when they pay city taxes to live, where they live. And that's not right. As mayor, I'm going to protect those residents. So yes, we made some progress. We're getting residents those parking permits, but is it really helping the residents over there? No. The city haven't been actively responding to the complaints from the residents. When people who's utilizing, the employees of the hospital is utilizing the parking spots, making it hard for residents who have groceries to walk to their home. So I will protect the residents to make sure developers, corporations, and those people don't try to buy out our residents.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ms. Walton, how would you deal with the gentrification of our neighborhoods, even though it may seem like they're, great, for mixed economies and so on, but at the same time, we have, like you said, loyal and longtime residents that said, hey, I've been here for 20 years, I'm not trying to pay these high taxes and so on. What could you do for us in a mayor seat?
Yeah, as mayor, I would expand on the work that I've been doing. I think that every neighborhood deserves some community control and ownership. I would definitely be willing to facilitate other neighborhoods being able to establish land trusts so that city-owned property can go into the hands of neighborhood and community members so that they can determine for themselves how it's developed, and then we put resources behind it. And make sure that communities are developed in ways that people who actually live there want to see. We talk about the Fruitvale neighborhood. I was a part of the group who got that parking permit system put in place. And I know that all things are not perfect, but you have to do something, right? It's a step it's a step in the right direction. It's more than what we had before. And we were able to get 50% of the parking reserved for people who actually live in the neighborhood, where before it was nothing that could be done. So, when I say that I am an expert in coalition building and putting differences aside, we worked with, neighborhood stakeholders, block clubs, elected officials, the Department of Parking of the city, the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus. And when you talk about getting a coalition that brought together, we don't always agree on everything, and many compromises had to be made. But at the end of the day, we were able to not only get parking permits for the people who lived in the neighborhood, but we were able to get the unions to subsidize parking fees for some of their lower wage workers, right? So when you think about how you do neighborhood development and how you keep people in place, it takes innovation, but it also takes strategy and coalition building. You can't do it as an individual. You have to work with other people. And the last thing I'll say is that, I was also a part of the group that worked with our Assembly Majority Leader, Crystal People-Stokes, to make sure that we were able to give tax relief for folks who live in the Fruitvale neighborhood, who were able to have their tax rates grandfathered in, so they didn't feel the same impact as some other community members did with the tax reassessment. But that is the value of organizing, right? Like, people like to sort of dismiss organizers as just people who yell and scream through a bullhorn. But an organized community has the political clout to cause change, because you're not only creating the political will to do something about it, but you're also providing that person with cover. So as mayor, I want people to organize me and provide you with a political cover, so that when we're making these bold moves and I'm keeping my people in place where they want to live, I can say, hey, my people asked for it. This is what the community wants. Nothing I can do about that. So, I think it's a multifaceted strategy that has to be put in place, but I'm ready. This is the work that I've been doing. And if I haven't been doing it myself, I've been working with other community members who have, and that's been doing a great job. And as mayor, I just want to amplify the work that we've already been doing.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. So speaking of neighborhoods, again, we, as Buffalo, New York, as you all know, we live in one of the most segregated, cities. Even though we've progressed over the last few years, we still are quite segregated. What would you do as mayor, Mrs. Durham?
Good question.
What would you do about bringing our city together because we're so highly segregated? Thank you.
You know what? That's who I am. I love to unite the people. Living on Persian, before I bought the house, we always lived on the east side of Buffalo. My family and I, we moved to Riverside. Riverside is very diverse. My family is the only Black family on the street. Instead of just sitting back waiting, I wanted to be the one to be proactive. When I moved over there, I organized a block club, got all the neighbors together. I did an event called Love Thy Neighbor, just to show that color doesn't mean anything. We all bleed the same at the end of the day. And I think, just getting, we just got to get the neighbors out and more involved. Some neighbors is just, they build up these assumptions and they assume, but we got to get our neighbors out of that. And I am very good at, uniting the people. So that's something that I will do, is try to get more Black clubs established, do meet and greets, host block party events, just be there for the Black clubs, so they could, live in a safe, stable neighborhood.
Great, thank you, Ms. Walton.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a coalition builder. That's what I do. That's what I've done for a long time. I'm a registered nurse, and my formal training tells me I don't judge people based on what they look like, but I have a duty and a responsibility to care for all people, and that's the lens through which I lead. My campaign team is definitely super diverse, but as a nurse and working in schools like, international school where more than 70 different languages and dialects are spoken, and being a resident of the West Side and just appreciating the diversity in our community. But I think what we can't do is we can't pretend like we're living in a post-racial America or Buffalo, right? This is one of the most segregated cities in the country. And what has not happened is we've not come together and had the courageous conversation and face the problem head on. We can't pretend, like racism is just a few bad opinions of a few individuals. Racism is a system, and the systematic approach that's been taken to separating us, we have to have an equal, an opposite, even a greater force of undoing all of the harm that's been done. So it's going to take some restorative circles. It's going to take a lot of, crossing boundaries and having conversations that are not going to be uncomfortable. But as the leader of the second largest city in New York State, I have a responsibility to be the one that's courageous enough to step out and say, like, hey, y'all, we have to come to the table, bring everyone together, and figure out how we build a robust and loving community where all people are valued. And you can say Black Lives Matter without people saying, well, what about everyone else, right? Because we know that traditionally everyone else has been okay. And we just have to, we got to start having the conversation. They have to be centered in love and rooted in forgiveness and care and kindness and compassion, and really being able to move our community forward in a space that is conducive to healing and authenticity.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Go
ahead, Vic.
I have a question. And so it'd be shifting gears a little bit, especially let's talk about water. So water is life. And so the first thing I want to ask about water is, what about the situation in terms of lead in water, lead in the pipes, and our water authority? So this is the first of a two-part question. So if you would each one. And actually, I think the fairest way is to go, we've had LeCandice, you went first because of alphabetical order. Now I think really the fairest way is to go back and forth. We could have done alternating every time, but now let's just shift gears. We're about halfway through the whole thing. So we'll have India go first and then LeCandice on that. Thanks.
Yeah. I think that we definitely have not been told the entire truth about the state of our water system in Buffalo. It's very sad that we have privatized so many of our public services that we don't have the same level of transparency that we once had. There is a lead problem in Buffalo, New York. It's not only with lead paint, which even that is a shame, but we know that we still have a lot of our piping that needs to be replaced. It's lead pipes. And this infrastructure investment that is coming from the federal government down the pipeline is going to either be used to prioritize vulnerable communities where we know that rates of lead poisoning are higher. We know that water fountains in our own public schools tested at 3 times the level of Flint, Michigan. And until we're, it all goes back to transparency, honesty, and accountability, right? We don't have to lie about where the problems are. We know, we just have to be willing to put the resources where they really matter. And like I keep saying, that is in our neighborhoods and in the homes of our families where people have suffered for so long.
Thanks. LeCandice?
Yes, so investing in our water system is very important. One of the things I would love to do, especially investing in our new water lines, is when we pave our streets, because we put so much money into paving our streets, and we know we need these new water lines. We're wasting money by doing that. Why we paving these streets? We need to go into these old neighborhoods where these old houses is, when we know that, there's lead in these pipes, the water is undrinkable. So that is one of my goals. Infrastructure is to, make sure our water is safe for everyone to drink. I myself don't even drink water out of my sink. And that's sad. I pay taxes to live here. I pay sewer taxes. I pay all that good stuff. I should be able to get good quality water out of my kitchen sink.
Thank you. So as a follow-up question to that, thank you. So as a follow-up question to that, don't laugh too hard. As a follow-up question, one thing that has been very close to a lot of people's hearts, especially our indigenous brothers and sisters living in Cattaraugus territory, in Seneca Reservation there, Cattaraugus Reservation, that West Valley, which was a failed experiment for recycling of nuclear waste, has a pile of nuclear waste. It is there's been some plumes that are going down towards Cattaraugus Creek. They've now found that there were more leaks than they thought there were. People have had, this is no accident that we have Roswell Park here, because so many people have cancer, because we do have a lot of radioactivity throughout Western New York. So I want to bring us to talk about West Valley and the fact that that water goes down Cattaraugus Creek into the Lake Erie, into Buffalo's water system. So the fact that there is a demolition of the area going on now, and the fact that the things that are needed there, which are both to have that demolition to be enclosed and to have full monitoring going on, is not going on. So I would like to ask each of you, what would you do about that situation?
Yeah, I think that, a lot of times when we come to our current administration with issues like this, we're told, well, that's not within the purview of the mayor's office. I believe that as the leader of the second largest city in New York State, even things that are not necessarily in the purview of the mayor's office, you have great influence over. So I would definitely want to bring in the EPA, bring in the Fed and state government to make sure that, we don't have any further degradation of our waterways due to what's happening at West Valley, and how we use some of this infrastructure money to be able to clean up this site. Because, like you said, Vicki, water is life. and you being designated a climate refuge city and living on one of the largest bodies of fresh water, and then to be constantly polluting it and not working across government entities, not working with the county and the state government to really figure out why we have pockets of cancer clusters, especially around railroad tracks and some of these post-industrial sites. We're doing our community a great disservice. So although, this is not something that's necessarily legislatable, or implementable by executive order, the mayor definitely has influence. And as mayor, I would be willing to use the full weight of my office as mayor to work with other branches of government to make sure that we get the issue of nuclear waste addressed and make sure that we don't have these issues in our communities in the future.
Thank you. LeCandice?
Yes, and thank you for informing me, because to be honest, I haven't heard, anything about it. So after this Zoom, I will look into, see what's going on. You said in Cattaraugus?
It's actually at in Springville. So that's Cattaraugus. It's down. It's upstream of Cattaraugus Creek, that goes through the Cattaraugus Reservation and goes into the Lake Erie and into Buffalo's water supply, as well as, of course, the water supply all through there. And it's also an aquifer, and certainly the Lake Erie is part of the whole Great Lakes system, which is 20% of the world's fresh water supply. And water pollution does not get, shunted off. I mean, it goes through whatever the water system is.
Yeah, and when it comes down to transparency, I would say someone knew something, especially with the higher ups. Anything that happened in the dark will come to light. And from listening to what you're saying, that's how I'm getting it. But, most definitely you want to get the best people out there, such as the EPA, and, test the land, test the soil, test the water, make sure it's healthy and good for the residents to drink, bathe in. So I will look into that after our Zoom call.
So, and to follow up on that question, one of the questions that actually I thought to ask you earlier was, what about the things that are the statewide and national questions? How, as a mayor, would you each interact, and over what kinds of issues would you feel called upon to interact on a statewide and a national basis?
I'm definitely drawn to all issues that have a positive impact on poor, working class, and people of color. As a registered nurse, I view a lot of the issues that we face as people through an intersectional lens. So I don't know that I can name specific pieces of legislation, but what I can say is that we need to protect workers' rights and the rights to organize labor unions in this country. We need to legalize adult use cannabis at the federal level and in arrests for marijuana possession. We also need to have a universal healthcare system, and we have to protect our democracy and protect people's rights to vote. Some of these laws that are coming out, are worse than what folks experienced during Jim Crow. And I think we also have to definitely strengthen protections for our LGBTQ folks, especially trans youth, and outlaw conversion therapy all over this country, and stop using violence as a way to get people to comply with our sometimes unreasonable wishes, and take a more trauma-informed and restorative approach to how we deal with people in general.
Thanks, India. And LeCandice?
Yes, I'm willing to work on any issues that legislation is, wanting to work on and pass. Something that is important to me at the moment is immigration reform. So I am wanting, that is something that is big to make sure our immigrant residents, is just not thrown into, for example, Buffalo is already poor, So I want.
Your sound cut out. LeCandice. Your sound cut out. We can't hear you.
Yeah, so and I don't know if you heard when I stated I wanted to work on immigration reform.
We did hear that much, and then we didn't hear after that.
And then I'm wanting to work on police reform, working on care for our seniors, especially at the moment, who's right now is still not getting activities. These senior citizens are still closed. So I'm willing to work with legislation, yes, on all topics.
Okay, but I was asking about the national and statewide relationships. On issues that are statewide or national issues.
Yes, so I'm willing to work on the green energy, immigration reform. I'm willing to work on all those top issues right now, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're about at a switch over point fairly shortly. If we want to ask one more question, and then we'll shift to another hour. If you would like to speak about policing and mental health, I don't know. Did you already talk about that? You did.
Well, I haven't discussed about police and mental health, which is important. Working in the cell block working in the Buffalo Police Department as a cell block attendant, mental health is very important. And instead of defunding the police and taking the money away, we need to think about all areas of the Buffalo Police Department, like the RTs, the dispatchers who have to listen to some calls that's just beyond you. Mental health is very important, so I would love to see that money invested into mental health and policing. Working down in the cell block, I had a coworker who committed suicide. So mental health is very important. You seeing all type of things, so that money do not need to be taken away from the police department at all. We need to invest in the police department. If anything, we got a lot of new officers that's coming in training. We don't need for them to learn the bad habits. We need to teach them the right way, so we need to invest in that training.
Thanks. And India, you want to say a word on that?
Sure.
Another word.
I did answer this question before.
Yeah, I'm sure. Sorry, that's my bad.
I will double down on it and say that I don't believe that police are the most appropriate response to mental health crises. We have very well trained social workers and mental health experts who are trained in de-escalation, and the data has told us time and time again that when uniformed and armed police officers show up to a person in mental health crisis, the situation tends to escalate, resulting in harm and sometimes death. So, I stand by what I said, is that we need to be investing more in community services that naturally reduce crime and stop expecting the police to be the solution to every societal ill that really is a result of us slashing social safety net programs, closing community centers and shutting down youth programming and these austerity budgets that are not taking care of people first, and, making folks very desperate and having to resort to committing crimes in order to make ends meet. And now that we have the mayor talking about implementing law enforcement assisted diversion, and the attorney general chiming in and saying, yes, we can have and need an independent civilian review board. I just don't believe that we need to continue to pour more money into policing when it's been woefully ineffective. Crime is up, violent crime is up, poverty is up. We're not seeing any improvement in the quality of life in our community, and to continue to do the same thing over and over again, over the last decade, maybe, $500,000 a year or less has been invested in education, but we continue to see this inflating police budget, and most of it goes toward retirement, fringe benefits, overtime, and court time. So it's not that people are being well trained, and as I stated before, you can't train away racism. That is a systemic issue. The system of policing was designed to be oppressive and racist, and when we look at the data, who gets pulled over for minor infractions, we know that unequivocally it's poor people and people of color. And until we have a leader who's bold enough to address the real problem here, we're going to continue to see the same results.
Well, I want to thank you both, and we will be, so far, this is our mayoral candidates forum, and we've been talking peace, and we've been talking peace in truth and love.